The pressure at 3,000 meters below sea level would crush most vessels like empty soda cans, but the Nautilus too cut through the darkness with unwavering determination. Dr. Juniper Blackwood pressed her face against the reinforced viewport, her breath fogging the glass as she watched the auxiliary lights illuminate the endless expanse of midnight waters. 20 years of marine biology research had led to this moment, yet nothing could have prepared her for what they were about to discover. Bioluminescent signatures detected at bearing 047, Doctor, announced Lieutenant Marcus Joe from his station, his fingers dancing across the holographic display. Pattern matches your theoretical predictions. Juniper straightened her back, trying to contain her excitement. Take us in closer, Marcus. Dr. Patel, are the collection chambers ready? Dr. Raj Patel, her longtime research partner, gave a thumbs up from the specimen bay. His dark eyes sparkled with the same anticipation that had driven their team to the bottom of the Pacific. Chambers primed and ready. Though I still think you're crazy for believing we'll find a completely new defense mechanism that evolution somehow missed documenting for millions of years. Sometimes the best discoveries come from crazy theories, Juniper replied with a slight smile. Her hypothesis about deep-sea creatures developing previously unknown defensive capabilities had been met with skepticism from the scientific community. But the preliminary data from their deep-sea probes had been impossible to ignore. The vessel's lights suddenly caught something moving in the darkness, a shimmer of impossible colors that seemed to bend the very water around it. The creature was roughly the size of a dolphin, but its form seemed to shift and change even as they watched. Recording all frequencies, called out Dr. Elena Volkov, their lead biophysicist. Her usually stoic expression cracked with wonder. This is impossible. The creature's outer membrane is manipulating the surrounding water pressure. It's creating some kind of localized field effect. Juniper's heart raced as she watched the readings flood their screens. The creature, which they would later name Pressure Nullifier due to its unique abilities, was doing something that defied conventional understanding of marine biology. It wasn't just surviving the crushing depths, it was actively controlling them. Launch the collection drone, Juniper ordered, her voice steady despite her growing excitement. As the remote-controlled unit approached the creature, something extraordinary happened. The water around the animal began to crystallize, forming a lattice of ice-like structures that shouldn't have been possible at these depths and temperatures. It's creating a defensive barrier, Raj whispered in awe. But the energy required for such a transformation. The creature turned its attention to their vessel, and for a moment, Juniper found herself staring into eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. The animal's skin rippled with patterns of light that made her think of complex mathematical equations. Dr. Blackwood, Marcus called out urgently, we're detecting similar signatures all around us. There's not just one, there's an entire population. As if responding to his words, the darkness around them came alive with shifting colors and impossible patterns. Dozens of creatures emerged from the gloom, each manipulating the pressure and temperature of the water in ways that shouldn't have been possible. This changes everything, Juniper breathed, her mind racing with the implications. We're not just looking at a new species. We're witnessing an entirely new branch of evolution, one that developed in isolation, hidden from human eyes for millions of years. The discovery would shake the foundations of evolutionary biology. These creatures hadn't just adapted to their environment, they had learned to control it. Their defensive mechanisms weren't passive adaptations but active manipulations of the physical world around them. As the team worked to document and study their discovery, none of them realized they were only scratching the surface. The pressure nullifiers were just the beginning, nature had more secrets to reveal, and each one would force humanity to reconsider its understanding of life itself. Dar. Volkov's voice cut through Juniper's thoughts. We're picking up some sort of communication between them. It's unlike anything I've ever seen, they're using variations in pressure waves to transmit information. Start mapping the patterns, Juniper instructed, pulling up her own display. If we can decode their communication, we might understand how they developed these abilities. As the hours passed, the team worked tirelessly to document every aspect of their discovery. The creatures seemed aware of their presence but showed no signs of aggression. Instead, they appeared to be studying the humans just as intently as they were being studied. "Look at this," Raj called out, pointing to a sequence of data. "Their cellular structure is constantly changing, adapting to external stimuli in real time. It's like they've evolved the ability to evolve." Juniper felt a shiver run down her spine. Their discovery wasn't just about these creatures, it was about understanding the true potential of life itself. Somewhere in the crushing depths of the ocean, evolution had created something extraordinary, and they were the first humans privileged enough to witness it. As the Nautilus 2's lights illuminated the mysterious dancers of the deep, Juniper couldn't help but wonder what other secrets lay hidden in Earth's most extreme environments. Their discovery would open new chapters in the story of life on Earth, but first, they had to understand what they were seeing, and more importantly, what it meant for the future of life on our planet. 2 weeks after their groundbreaking discovery, the research vessel Nautilus 2 had been transformed into a floating laboratory. The specimen chamber, originally designed to hold simple marine samples, now housed something that defied conventional biology. Dr. Juniper Blackwood stood before the reinforced observation window, watching as the pressure nullifier inside demonstrated abilities that grew more remarkable by the day. "It's changing again, Dr." Elena Volkov announced, her eyes fixed on the array of sensors monitoring the chamber. The creature's skin rippled with patterns of bioluminescence, but this time, something was different. The water around it began to take on properties that shouldn't have been possible in Earth's gravity. Lieutenant Zhou leaned forward at his monitoring station, frowning at the readings. "The specimen is generating some kind of localized gravitational field. It's not just manipulating pressure anymore, it's altering the fundamental forces around it." "That's not the only thing it's doing," Dr. Raj Patel called from his workstation. He had been analyzing the creature's cellular structure for days, and the results were becoming increasingly bizarre. The rate of mutation in its genetic code has accelerated. It's as if it's actively rewriting its own DNA. Juniper felt a mixture of excitement and unease. When they had first discovered the pressure nullifiers, she had expected to find remarkable adaptations to deep-sea conditions. Instead, they had found creatures that seemed to be actively evolving before their eyes. "Look at this temporal mapping," Elena said, pulling up a holographic display. The three-dimensional image showed the creature's evolutionary changes over the past week. It's not just adapting to its environment, it's anticipating changes before they happen. The defensive mechanisms are becoming more sophisticated with each passing hour. A sudden alarm blared through the lab. Marcus's fingers flew across his console. "We're detecting energy signatures similar to the specimens throughout the ship's hull. The metal is changing." Juniper rushed to the nearest viewport. The reinforced steel of the Nautilus 2's hull was developing patterns similar to those they had observed on the pressure nullifier's skin. "It's not just defending itself," she whispered. "It's teaching the environment around it to adapt." "That's impossible," Raj protested, but his voice lacked conviction. They had all seen too many impossible things lately to dismiss anything outright. The specimen in the chamber had begun to pulse with a deep, rhythmic light. Each pulse sent waves of transformation through the surrounding water, creating structures that seemed to exist in more dimensions than their instruments could measure. "Gar." "Blackwood," Elena called out, her voice tight with concern, "the creature's neural activity is off the charts. These patterns, they're not random. They're organized in ways that suggest intelligence," Juniper finished. "Not just intelligence, consciousness. They're not just surviving in the depths, they're building something down there. A new kind of ecosystem that operates on principles we're only beginning to understand." The implications were staggering. These creatures hadn't merely evolved sophisticated defensive mechanisms, they had developed the ability to accelerate and direct evolution itself. Each generation wasn't just passing on genetic information, they were passing on the knowledge of how to manipulate the very fabric of reality. "We need to expand our research parameters," Juniper announced, her mind racing with possibilities. These beings aren't just protecting themselves from predators or environmental pressures. They're creating defensive mechanisms that could reshape our understanding of life itself. As if in response to her words, the specimen began to emit a series of complex pressure waves. The ship sensors translated them into sound, a haunting melody that seemed to carry information in its very frequencies. "It's trying to communicate," Marcus realized, adjusting the sensors to better capture the signals. The patterns matched the ones we recorded from the population in their natural habitat. But they're more complex now, more deliberate. Raja's console suddenly lit up with new data. The creature's genetic structure is stabilizing, but in a configuration unlike anything in our database. It's as if it's reached some kind of evolutionary breakthrough. The team watched in amazement as their specimen underwent its most dramatic transformation yet. Its form became more crystalline, its tissues taking on properties of both organic and inorganic matter. The water within the chamber began to move in impossible patterns, creating structures that seemed to bridge the gap between living and non-living matter. "This isn't just about survival anymore," Juniper said, her voice filled with wonder. "These creatures have evolved beyond mere defensive adaptations. They're showing us that evolution itself can be a conscious process, that life can actively participate in its own development." Elena's hands moved swiftly across her console, documenting every aspect of the transformation. The implications for medicine, technology, even our understanding of consciousness, this could change everything. As the team worked to understand their discovery, none of them noticed the subtle changes beginning to spread throughout the Nautilus II. The ship's hull wasn't just mimicking the patterns they had observed, it was learning from them, adapting in ways that would soon challenge everything they thought they knew about the boundaries between living and non-living matter. The pressure nullifier's light pulsed one final time, and in that moment, Juniper understood that they weren't just observing evolution, they were participating in it. Humanity had stumbled upon something that would force them to reconsider their place in the grand tapestry of life on Earth. The first signs of the awakening came from the Nautilus II's hull sensors. What had started as subtle changes in the metal's molecular structure had evolved into something far more profound. Dr. Juniper Blackwood stood in the ship's cargo bay, watching as patterns of bioluminescence, identical to those displayed by the pressure nullifiers, rippled across the reinforced steel walls. "The transformation has spread to 30% of the ship's structure," Lieutenant Marcus Joe reported, his voice tense. "And it's accelerating. The metal isn't just changing its properties, it's developing characteristics of living tissue." Dr. Elena Volkov emerged from her makeshift laboratory, her sleepless nights evident in the dark circles under her eyes. "It's not just the ship. I've been analyzing data from our global monitoring network. We're detecting similar patterns of adaptation in marine ecosystems worldwide." "Show me," Juniper demanded, following Elena to the main research bay. The holographic display came to life, revealing a map of Earth's oceans dotted with pulsing points of light. Each point represented a location where conventional materials were exhibiting unprecedented transformative properties. Dr. Raj Patel burst into the room, clutching a tablet displaying rows of complex data. "You need to see this. The bacterial cultures in my lab, they're responding to the pressure nullifier's signals. Single-celled organisms are developing defensive capabilities that should take millions of years of evolution to achieve." Juniper's mind raced as she processed the implications. It's not just about individual species anymore. The pressure nullifiers aren't just evolving, they're broadcasting the blueprint for evolution itself. The ship's intercom crackled with static before clearing. "Dar. Blackwood," a crew member's voice called out, "we're receiving reports from research stations worldwide. The phenomenon isn't limited to marine environments anymore. Similar transformations are being observed in terrestrial ecosystems. The team gathered around the central display as data poured in from across the globe. In the Amazon rainforest, plants were developing crystalline structures that could manipulate light and energy in ways that defied current understanding of photosynthesis. Deep in the Sahara, bacterial colonies were creating complex networks that could alter the properties of sand, transforming the desert itself. "Look at these patterns," Elena said, highlighting a series of energy signatures. "They're identical to the communication frequencies we recorded from the pressure nullifiers. Whatever they've awakened, it's spreading through every kingdom of life." Marcus pulled up satellite imagery showing the spread of the phenomenon. "The changes are following Earth's magnetic field lines. It's as if the planet's own electromagnetic network is acting as a transmission system for this evolutionary broadcast." "That's because it is," Juniper realized, her voice filled with awe. "We thought we were discovering a new species, but we were actually witnessing the awakening of Earth's defensive system. The pressure nullifiers aren't just individual organisms, they're part of something much larger." The ship's transformed hull hummed with a deep resonance that seemed to vibrate through their bones. The metal had taken on an almost organic quality, responding to environmental changes with the same fluid adaptability as living tissue. "The question is," Raj said, studying a sample of the transformed metal under a microscope, "why now? What triggered this planetary-scale awakening?" Before anyone could respond, Elena's console erupted with alerts. "Massive energy spike detected in the Mariana Trench. The readings, they're off the charts. Whatever's happening down there, it's changing the fundamental properties of the ocean itself." The team watched in stunned silence as their instruments recorded the impossible. The deepest part of Earth's oceans was becoming a crucible of evolution, generating waves of transformation that rippled through the planet's biosphere. "It's not just about defense anymore," Juniper said, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is about adaptation on a planetary scale. Earth isn't just allowing life to evolve, it's actively directing that evolution." A sudden thought struck her, and she rushed to her research station. "Pull up the historical data on mass extinction events," she called out. The display filled with timelines spanning millions of years. There, she pointed to a pattern that had gone unnoticed until now. Each major extinction event was followed by an explosion of evolutionary innovation. What if those weren't just random mutations? What if Earth has always had this ability, to accelerate evolution when survival demands it? The implications were staggering. They hadn't just discovered a new defensive mechanism, they had stumbled upon Earth's own immune system, a planetary-scale network of adaptation and evolution that had lain dormant for millions of years. So what activated it? Marcus asked, voicing the question on everyone's mind. Juniper stared at the data streaming across their screens, each new reading confirming her growing suspicion. "We did. Human activity, climate change, pollution, habitat destruction, we pushed the planet to a tipping point. And now it's fighting back, not through destruction, but through transformation." The ship's transformed hull pulsed with new patterns of light, as if acknowledging their understanding. They were witnessing the beginning of something unprecedented, a conscious evolution that would reshape life on Earth in ways they could barely imagine. The Nautilus II's transformed hull gleamed with an otherworldly light as it ascended from the depths of the Mariana Trench. After 3 months of studying the global evolutionary awakening, Dr. Juniper Blackwood and her team were finally ready to present their findings to the world. But the Earth had one more revelation in store for them. "Energy signatures are evolving," Lieutenant Marcus Zhou announced from his station, which had become a hybrid of traditional electronics and living tissue. "The patterns we're seeing, they're not just communication anymore. They're becoming more complex, more structured." Dr. Elena Volkov's fingers danced across her biointegrated console, analyzing the new data. "It's like watching a nervous system develop. The transformed ecosystems aren't just adapting independently, they're forming connections, creating a planetary network of consciousness." "Look at this," Dr. Raj Patel called out, directing their attention to the main display. The screen showed time-lapse footage from around the world. Deserts were sprouting crystalline forests that could harvest energy directly from solar wind. Arctic ice was developing complex molecular structures that could store and process information like biological computers. The revolution isn't just biological, Juniper realized, watching as cities around the world began to integrate with their transformed environments. We're witnessing the birth of a new kind of planetary intelligence. The ship sensors suddenly detected a massive surge of activity from the network of pressure nullifiers they had first discovered. The creatures had spread throughout the world's oceans, but they were no longer simply individual organisms. They had become nodes in Earth's emerging neural network. "They're reaching out," Marcus said, his voice filled with wonder. "Not just to other life forms, but to us. The patterns, they're trying to establish direct communication with human consciousness." As if in response to his words, the ship's transformed systems began to pulse with new rhythms. The team felt a strange resonance in their minds, as if they were being invited to join a vast conversation. "It's not trying to replace us," Elena whispered, her eyes wide with understanding. "The planet is offering us a chance to evolve alongside it. To become part of this new defense system, not as conquerors or subjects, but as partners." Raj's monitoring equipment suddenly registered a surge of activity in the human population. Reports are coming in from every continent. People are starting to sense it, this connection to the planetary consciousness. Our own evolution is beginning to accelerate. Juniper moved to the viewport, watching as schools of pressure nullifiers escorted their ship through waters that now shimmered with impossible colors. "This was never about creating unstoppable defensive mechanisms," she said. "It was about understanding that true defense comes from cooperation, from becoming part of something larger than ourselves." The ship's communication system crackled to life, but instead of voices, they heard a symphony of information, the sound of Earth's ecosystems learning to speak in a language that bridged the gap between organic and inorganic, between conscious and unconscious life. "The transformed areas are stabilizing," Marcus reported, studying the global data. "The initial chaos of rapid evolution is giving way to something more ordered, more purposeful. It's like watching a newborn mind learning to think." Elena's research station emitted a soft chime. "The genetic changes we're observing in human populations, they're not random mutations. The planet is helping us develop new capabilities, new ways of perceiving and interacting with the environment. And we're not the only ones," Raj added, pulling up footage from wildlife preserves and urban areas alike. Animals were developing new forms of communication and cooperation. Plants were creating networks that could process and share information faster than any computer. The Nautilus too broke the surface of the Pacific Ocean, emerging into a world that was both familiar and profoundly changed. The sky above them shimmered with aurora-like patterns, the visible manifestation of Earth's new neural network. "Humanity always thought of evolution as a battle for survival," Juniper said, watching as the transformed hull of their ship seamlessly adapted to the air. "We saw nature as something to be conquered or protected. But the truth was always more complex. The most unstoppable defense isn't a weapon or a shield, it's the ability to change, to grow, to become something new while remaining true to what you are." As their ship approached the coast of what had once been a conventional research station, they saw that it had evolved into something that defied traditional architecture. Living buildings pulse with bioluminescence, their structures constantly adapting to the needs of their inhabitants. "The real revolution," Juniper continued, addressing her team but speaking to all of humanity through the planetary network that now connected them, "isn't in the mechanisms of defense we discovered. It's an understanding that we're part of a living system that has been evolving for billions of years. The Earth didn't develop these abilities to fight against us, it developed them to help us all survive together." The team stood together, watching as the sun set on this new age of evolution. The light played across the transformed surface of their world, creating patterns that spoke of infinite possibility and eternal change. They had set out to study the most unstoppable defensive mechanisms that evolution had created, only to discover that the greatest defense of all was the ability to transcend the very concept of defense itself. In the depths of the ocean, in the heart of the earth, and in the consciousness of every living thing, a new chapter in the story of life had begun. The boundaries between species, between organic and inorganic, between individual and collective, were dissolving into something greater, a planetary symphony of endless transformation and renewal.